Hi there, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to basically basic research methods, political science research methods, where we're going over Van Evera's guide to research, guide to research in political science. Um, we last looked at basically what theory is, and explanations are, right? And looking at the difference between those things. Continuing now. Today we're going to be going at the question of, well, it's more deal with what makes a good theory. You know, what makes a good theory? What makes a good theory? Okay, and so let's look at this. Um, what what is a good theory? He says now seven prime attributors to a good. He basically argues that seven prime attributors to the quality of a theory. Now, okay, this is going to be the 15 here. One, a good theory has a large explanatory power, so therefore large explanatory power. A theory's independent variable has a large effect on the wide range of phenomena under a wide range of conditions. So therefore, this was, in other words, it has independent variable has a large effect on a wide range of phenomena under a wide range of conditions. Now he says there's three characteristics govern independence. So this concept, this attribute is defined by three things: importance, explanatory range, and application applicability. Right. But let's go on this. Importance. What is there for us? This is again. This is part of large explanatory importance of it. Right? Does the variance of the value on the independent variable cause large or small variance on the value of a dependent variable? Now, the theory's importance can be measured in theoretical or dispersional terms, dispersion terms. The dispersion terms. In other words, is it the impact of a theoretical, no, the impact of this, or does it a theoretical measure on importance asks how many units of change in the value on the dependent variable are caused by a unit of change in the value on the independent variable. How many additional votes can a candidate gain by spending additional campaign dollars on TV ads? Right, this example. A dispersion measure asks what share percentage, of the DV total variance and dependent variables is a specific data set caused in variation to its independent variable. That is, what percentage of the variance in the votes received by various congressional candidates is explained by the variance in their television spending. I use importance in the former sense to refer to a theoretical importance in that sense. He's going to be using it not. There's two ways to understand it: this and this. He really understands importance in terms of this way. An important theory points to causes that have large impact. One that causes large variance on the dependent variable. The greater the variance produced, the greater the theory's explanatory. So the greater the impact and the variation. In other words, again, the theory causes a large impact. One causes large variance on the dependent variable, so it causes it to act differently, and to be large, significant impact on it. The greater the variance, the greater the theory's explanatory. The explanatory range, the range of the explanation, right? How many how many classes of phenomena does the variance and the value of the theory's independent variable affect and hence explain? So it's how many different types of classes of phenomena does this thing, does this the theory's independent variable affects and then hence explains. The wider the range of affected phenomena, the greater the theory's explanatory value. In other words, it explains many things, lots of things, right? Most social science theories have narrow range, but few gems explain diverse domains, right? Now, this is 16. Caldor used the combinational richness and organizational power for attributing to what I call explanatory range with I call experimental with combination, which is expressing the range of combination or patterns that can be generalized from a model or and organization power deriving the correspondence of the theory or model to phenomena other than those that it was used to explain, right? Karl Deutscher Nerves of Government, those pages. Examples of social science theories with wide explanatory range include Olson's theories of public goods, Jarvis's offense-defense theory of war and arms races. Oh, we interrupted for a second. Now, or Stanislav's Amendment of Military Organization Society, and Steve Waltz's or the Origins of Alliance. These are like key steps to this now. Applicability. How common is the theory's cause in the real world? What's how common? How common are the antecedent conditions that activate its operation? The more prevalent the causes and conditions of the theory, the greater the explanatory power. Note 17. Even causes that produce powerful effects can have little explanatory power if these causes are rare in the real world, or if they require rare antecedent conditions to operate. In other words, you can have a very powerful theory that have powerful effects, but have real little explanatory power because what they are rare. These causes are rare in the real world, or the antecedent conditions that operate on the causes are rare in the real world. Conversely, causes that produce weaker effects can have greater explanatory value if the cause and antecedent conditions are common. Thus, while great white shocks are often lethal, they explain few deaths because they are scarce in the real world. The cause is strong but rare, hence it explains little. Sunburn is lethal but explains more death. Sunburn is less lethal but explains more death. The skin through skin cancer because it is more common. Likewise, scuba diving is often lethal if hungry. Scuba diving is often lethal if hungry great white sharks are around. But scuba diving explains few deaths because divers avoid shark-infested waters. The cause is powerful under the right conditions. Hungry shark nearby. But these conditions are rare. Hence, the cause explains few events. Sunburn explains more deaths, because it does not require rare conditions to produce its harmful effects. In other words, again, that's what he says. Why this is applicability. The greater, how more likely is the cause or the antecedent condition are occurring in the world. Therefore, it's greater applicability. The prevalence of these causes and conditions in the past govern its power to explain history. In other words, the power of those things, these causes and these conditions in the past. Their current and future prevalence governs the power to explain the present and future events, right? So therefore, these causes and conditions, if they're present in the past, that's help explains history. If their current and future prevalence governs our ability to explain present and future, right? So again, the amount of events. This is applicability. So that was again gives us the first condition. This is all those three things deal with large explanatory power, right? Now, two, good theories elucidate, clarify, spell out by simplifying. Hence, a good theory is parsimonious. It means do more with less. That's what parsimoniousness is. Parsimoniousness, parsimoniousness. That means it's do more with less. It's like stingy. We don't want to. There's a more pejorative word that we can't use because it's the N word. A verb, adverb, but parsimonious, parsimonious. That's it. Parsimonious. It's parsimonious. Has hence a good theory is parsimonious. It uses few variables simply arranged to explain its effect. Gaining parsimony requires some sacrifice of explanatory power. However, if the sacrifice is too large, it becomes unworthwhile. We tolerate some complexity if we need to explain it through the world. Now, this is the famous Grisham's law too. Remember, the Occam's razor. Sorry, in science it's called in logic Occam's razor. That in other words, the most obvious, an obvious answer that satisfies is good, than to something that more complicated, something simple. In other words, Occam's razor is the most obvious answer, an obvious, clear, and simple answer that satisfies the situation, clearly satisfies the situation. Um, is preferable to something that's very complex or complicated, right? Okay, that's the idea. This is same thing, parsimonious, but a simple solution. Now, as long as, in other words, if it needs to satisfy the situation. In other words, does the simplicity cause you to sacrifice too much, and is no longer worthwhile doing? In other words, and the question of what a sacrifice is does it really explain this? Does it satisfyingly explain the situation? That's why I think that's why the word next term is satisfying is important. But parsimonious, there was a theory that uses less variables is better than one that's very complex, as long as it explains the phenomena sufficiently. Okay, right. Now, three. A good theory is satisfying. So, one, logismatory power; two, parsimonious; three, satisfying. That is, it satisfies our curiosity. A theory is unsatisfying if it leaves us wondering what causes the cause proposed by the theory. Now, in other words, a theory that doesn't give us a clear understanding of what is causing the cause, that's not satisfying. This happens when theories point to familiar causes whose causes in turn are a mystery. Okay. A politician once explained her election loss. I didn't get enough votes. This is true, but it's unsatisfying. We want to know why she didn't get enough votes. The further removed a cause stands from its proposed effect, the more satisfying the theory. So in other words, something that satisfies us is that, in other words, if the cause and the effect are very close, that's kind of It's, okay, see, the first problem is you give something, but it's a mystery what he's meant by that. It doesn't. I didn't get enough votes, right? I lost. I lost because I didn't get enough votes. Well, that is not a satisfying theory because why didn't you get those votes, right? That's more satisfying. In other words, and then the other thing is that the further removed the cause of something is to its effect, the more satisfying the theory is. Thus, droughts cause famine is less satisfying than changes in ocean surface temperatures cause shifts in atmospheric wind patterns, causing shifts in areas of heavy rainfall, causing droughts, causing famine. In other words, this one, it's farther away. It's more complex, more intermediate variables, but it's more satisfying in that sense. You see what I mean by that? Satisfying satisfies. We don't know. In other words, drought. Simple answer. Drought causes this. Okay, but that's because the answer is so close to the causing thing. The cause is so close to the effect. Something that's more powerfully satisfying is we can see a clear explanation of why something that is farther away, further from the effect, is the agent of this. And that's what he says, satisfying in that sense. So satisfying, it satisfies that curiosity. A good theory is clearly framed clearly framed. Otherwise, we cannot infer predictions from it, test it, or apply it in concrete situations. So it has to be clearly framed. Otherwise, we cannot infer predictions from it. We cannot test it, and it cannot. In other words, it needs to be a clearly framed theory fashions its variables from concepts that the theorists have clearly defined. So you have this is therefore the concepts from concepts that have been clearly defined. A clearly framed theory includes a full range of theories' explanations. So let's do this, right? He says, repeat this, a clearly framed theory fashions its variables from concepts that the theory has clearly defined. So the theory has to be clearly defined. A clearly framed theory includes a full outline of the theory's explanation. It does not leave us wondering how A causes B. So clearly outlined explanation of A causes B. Thus, change in the ocean temperature causes famine is less complete than changes in the atmosphere. Ocean and changes in the ocean's temperature causes shift in atmosphere wind patterns, causes shifts in areas of heavy rainfall, causing droughts, causing famine. A clearly framed theory includes a statement of the antecedent conditions that enable its operation and governs an impact. So therefore, this clearly framed must include a statement about it. Otherwise, we cannot tell what cases the theory governs and thus cannot infer useful policy prescriptions. Policy disasters often happen because policymakers apply valid theories to inappropriate circumstances. Hence, this is consider the hypothesis that appeasing other states makes them more aggressive and cause war. This was true in Germany in 1939, 38, 39, but the opposite is sometimes true. A firm stand makes the other more aggressive, causing war. To avoid policy backfires, therefore, policymakers must know the antecedent condition that decides a firm stand will make the others more or less aggressive. Parallel problems arise in all policymaking domains and highlights the importance of framing antecedent conditions clearly. In other words, what are the antecedent conditions? You have to clear what is the situation, what are the conditions that define and the antecedent conditions effect on the actor. Like in this case, aggression causes war, right? Aggression causes war. So therefore, do we take a stand or not, right? In other words, a stand makes sense in that, but no, this is a policy question. Policy disasters because we don't pay attention to the antecedent conditions. So you have to have the antecedent conditions clearly framed to know what they are. The fifth cause, a good theory is in principle falsifiable. Now, falsifiable, this is one of these social science terms. Falsifiable means you can test it, that it's possible to test it and find its validity or invalidity. A statement that you cannot validate or invalidate, right? That's not falsifiable. That's what falsifiable means. Something that we can validate or invalidate. Something has the possibility that could be whether it's true or it's false. Okay. Data that would falsify a theory can be defined, although it may not know how to be available. Right. This is the problem of 18. This is the Hempel's. This is the sky requirement of a theory of being available. Like this. Theories that are not clearly framed may not be theories that are not clearly framed may not be non-clearly framed theories that are not clearly framed may be non-falsifiable because the vagueness prevents investigators from inferring predictions from them. In other words, vague, not clear means we can't have firm predictions, and therefore we can't test, right? Theories that make omni predictions, that multiple predictions, multiple, many, okay, many that are fulfilled by all observed events are not falsifiable. So a theory that explains everything, in other words, it explains this, and this, and this, that's not that falsifiable, right? In other words, fulfilled by all observed events. In other words, a theory that makes omni predictions that are fulfilled by all these events, right? This is not falsifiable. Empirical tests cannot collaborate or affirm such theories because all evidence is consistent with them. Religious theories of phenomena have this quality. Happy outcomes of God's rewards. Disasters are God's punishment. Cruelties are God's test of our faith. The outcomes that elude these broad categories are God's mysteries. Similar Marxist arguments share this omnipredictive trait. Okay, 19. For example, see King Cohen Weber Defining Sources is a great book. Mentioning Tucker Parsons' theory of actions and David Easton's systems analysis of macropolitics. And Easton, see Harry Eckerson's, right? Again, this is Eckerson. This is too general. This is not fun. He's saying that this is so true, and I agree with this. That this is a process. This is not the theory. This is not something to test. This is just not a theory in the theory sense. Easton's model is just he gives us a process that by which theories operate. That this is not testable in the sense. That this is a description of a process. The question that it reflects reality, and it's a big process of multiple things. Well, this is the environment. Now, it is not a theory in this sense. Okay, that's why I would be careful about Easton systems theory is not a theory. It's a more really. It's I don't know what to call it. Really, it's a meta theory in that sense. It is a framework, system framework, not a theory in that sense. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Systems theory. That's to call it a theory is to misapply it. I think that's correct in that sense, right? Number 6, the sixth category. A good theory explains important phenomena. It answers questions that matter to the wider world, or it helps others answer such questions. So it either answers them or helps others answer them. Theories that answered unasked questions are less useful, even if they answer these questions well. Much of social science theorizing has little real-world relevance and thus fails. That's a very sarcastic word. Just because you unanswered thing, someone, we haven't done this before. Okay, but does it explain important phenomena? Just because it hasn't been described before, or hasn't been, in other words, something that has not been, in other words, unasked questions. Not all unasked questions or untested, unrealized things are important. We should pay attention to the important things he's saying. The sixth category. And the seventh category is a good theory has prescriptive richness. It yields useful policy recommendations. Okay, prescriptive richness, good policy recommendation. A theory gains prescriptive richness by pointing to manipulable causes that be manipulable. Since manipulable causes might be controlled by human action, therefore, causes that are non-manipulable, no human action. So that's something that's the to determine. But we're looking at causes manipulable, something that can manipulate it, therefore controlled by human action. Thus, capitalism causes imperialism causes war is less useful than offensive military postures and doctrines cause war, even if both theories are equally valid, because the structure of national economies is less manipulative than national military postures and doctrines. Teaching chauvinist history in school causes war is still even more useful, since the context of national education is more easily adjusted than national military policy. So therefore, capitalism causes imperialism causes war. It's less useful because these things are okay. This causes that, causes that. Okay, this is again. This is what is he saying here? It's a process that doesn't allow that much for what he said manipulable causes. Right? These are not manipulable. And nothing can do this. Yes, capitalism itself is just causes imperialism. It is not. In fact, capitalism causes imperialism is kind of it's a in some ways it can be tested, but it's not saying much, right? It's like rain happens. Sometimes it rains. Sometimes it snows. Okay, it's the same. It's okay. Now, why is he saying that? This is not. This is prescriptive richness means that we're able to make prescriptions, do things. In other words, define policies. A theory gains prescriptive richness by identifying dangers that could be averted or mitigated by timely countermeasures. So, in other words, something that we can do to change the outcome of the theory. Okay. Okay. Prescriptive makes prescriptions. Prescriptions like doctor's notes to do something. So prescriptive means that we're able to do things to either prevent what's happening to happen or to help what we want to happen. Right. In other words, repeating, a theory gains prescriptive by identifying dangers that can be averted or mitigated by timely countermeasures. Thus, theories explaining the causes of hurricanes provide no way to prevent them, but they do help forecasters warn threatened communities to secure property and take shelter. So, therefore, theories of hurricanes doesn't teach us about how to stop hurricanes from happening, but it teaches us when they're going to happen or likely to happen, and therefore are able to warn people to take precautions, right? And take shelter, secure their property and take shelter. A theory gains prescriptive richness by identifying antecedent conditions required for the operation. See point 4, right? Again, this is point 4 here, up there. The fourth condition is a clearly framed, right? They need to be clearly framed. The better these conditions are specified, the greater our ability to, in other words, the better these conditions are specified, the greater our ability to avoid misapplying the theory's prescriptives to situations that the theory does not govern. Okay, again, we have to know: does the theory we, what where does what the theory the explanation of the theory and its explanation govern certain things. Will govern that if they're not these conditions and the situations. If those are not there, then this does not govern it. This theory does not govern it. So we have to know. Therefore, instead of applying things to area where the theory is not being governed, then it's best not to do this, right? And I would even point to the famous disaster of the economic reforms in the 1990s in the Soviet Union. The neoliberal policy reforms assumed that the Soviet Union in the post-Soviet world was basically had the same social network structure and structures of institution as what happened in East Asia and Latin America, where clearly it didn't. That's and what happened was that in other words, neoliberal policy always ends up disaster. That's not true. Neoliberal, and I hate to have a friend who Mexican, oh, neoliberal disaster. No, neoliberal policies aren't the causes of the problems in Mexico. Those causes were before neoliberal policies, and it's tied to this colonial past in that sense. But well, in some ways, we can argue that neoliberal policies in place in Mexico did improve things, but they also made the pre-existing problems more evident and more obvious. Okay, and maybe they will force the Mexican authority to do that, but didn't necessarily solve those problems. But it did make for the less poverty, overall less poverty. Not because, of course, some areas can be, but this is the problem that this is the problem. That now the neoliberal policy in Latin America was generally successful. Um, it moderated certain things. Now, of course, that sometimes created conditions that the forces would then get stronger now that they can impose worse governments on them. Okay, that's the other thing. This is Latin America, Honduras, and those places. Um, it worked better in Colombia than elsewhere, right? You can say Colombia worked better than it did in Honduras or even El South in Nicaragua, right? But that's another issue in that sense. Prescriptive, whereas in East Asia they worked pretty very well, but the conditions of society there were different. And this is the thing I always tell about my libertarian and neoliberal friends about Russia was they miss. I mean, this is why the what's his name Pipes. Is it not Daniel? Pipe's book of Property and Freedom, or Liberty, Freedom and Property. It's Freedom, Property, Liberty. I always forget the title. He compared Russia and England. And his argument was that the Russians never really developed concepts of private property, never had never had conditions of civil society, structures of these things, didn't have no concepts of rule of law. In other words, and therefore that the Soviet Union did not fix any of these problems. And in fact, even though the Tsarist state was there, and once the Tsarist state of the Tsar, and then was replaced by the Communist Party state, but nothing was really done to fix or create civil society within that model. Well, this is why Marxists didn't like civil society. That was his bourgeois. That meant because remember that's the word. That's the fact. That's the word. In German, it's often translated with civil society. In English, it's translated in German as by Kant and Hegel. I think it's more Hegel as a bourgeois society. Gemeinschaft. Gemeinschaft. Gesellschaft. Is it? I always forget Gemeinschaft. Gesellschaft. So it's biblically, it is the bourgeois, the French, the German word for the city dweller, that became bourgeois. Um, that. So therefore, this is what's so interesting about that. So again, let's just before we go into it, I'm not going to go next things. This is the stopping thing. The 7 points once again, just going quickly. A large exploratory power, one, which is composed of three categories: importance, exploratory range, and applicability. Then the second is parsimoniousness. Third is satisfying. A theory is satisfying. 4 is clearly framed. 5 is it's falsifiable. 6 is explains important phenomena. And 7, prescriptive richness. Okay, that is prescriptive richness. And that's the categories of that's what doing that. So that's it. If you have any comments, you have any questions, please put it there. I see it. I will respond to it. If you like the video, like it, share it with friends, share it around, share it on your social media. If you didn't like it, okay, thumbs down. Explain what you did it. This should be a little shorter than my previous video. I'm sorry it was too long, but I had to deal. I dealt with the basic definitions. If you want to follow me on social media, my links are below. Other things. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to our things. My social media links are below. You can follow me there. Also, my social academic media links. All right, so my my background is there too. So you can see my, who I am, what I am, and scholarship and things like that. And then you can. If you want to help me do what I do, there's Patreon and Subscribestar. You can become a patron or a helper on Subscribestar. This will help me do what I do here. And then, last but not least, you can you can also buy. If you want to help me, you can buy a book. That's listed with my books that I've published. Another thing you can do, I don't know. Let's see what I can do. Blah, blah, blah. That's it in that sense. That's it. You can buy one of the books, and that's it. Again, we'll see this. We're trying to continue this out in a certain number of videos. Next one, we'll look at how general theories are made. In other words, how theories are made. And that's it. Well, we'll stop here. Take care. Bye-bye. Have a good day.